So this fetches our data, we console log out the data. This here is an array of objects. This data, as we looked at in our last class. When you have an array of objects, you can map. Once you have an array, you can map it. You can use map. And like I explained earlier, map is going to call on the function for the cover. When you have map like this, and you say data.map, then you put a cover here or a function here like this. So map will call on this function based on the number of items in data. Then you can put an argument here, maybe person. This person represents each item in data. And because this is an array of objects, person represents each of the objects in data. So for each object there, you want to run this guts. So what are we trying to do? We want to extract the ID and the username for each person there. We want to extract it. So to do that, you say, say return an object, and this object you have a property username, and that would be person.username. You are extracting this person.username and store it as this property username. Then ID is a person.id. So you're extracting this and you store it as ID. So you are returning this object. Just like we discussed, this object now will be returned for each of the items in this person. So let's do everything now. We can call it usernames equals to this. So this will now be an array, and this usernames at the end of the day will be an array that contains an object like this. And each of the objects will have a property username and a property ID. Then you can set it out like this. So let's go to today's class. This solution to our last class assignment. Today we want to look at states. Use effects. We looked at use states. We want to look at use effects. Use states, use effect. Use effect is the second most important React hook after use states. Second most important one. So let's see how to make use of it. I will delete all of these codes so that we can start. So use effects are used to handle side effects. From our last class, please you can tell us the meaning of side effects. I explained side effects in our last class. Nobody? Hello everybody. Can we hear me? Let's start with that. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Please, I want us to participate. I want it to be interactive. So use effect is used to handle side effects. From what I explained in the last class, I explained that the prime purpose of React is to display UI, user interface, and to respond to events and display user interface. That's the prime purpose of React. So anything outside of this primary purpose is usually called effect. Maybe fetching API calls, like maybe fetching data from an endpoint, local storage, getting items from local storage. All of these things are side effects, and you use effects to handle side effects in ReactJS. So in our last class also, we did something like this. Created a button. Then on click of this button, we call on a function, maybe get data. Then let's create the function get data together. First get data. then equals to, we have exhaust here already, exhaust dot get our URL, just in place of that. Let me just fetch it here. Okay, let's go down. I just use this. Okay. So I told you use async, you await it, you save it. So when you click on this button, if you call on this function, and this will get the list of the users for you, then you can log it to the console if you want to. So let's just log it. This is what we did in our last class. But there's something I want us to look at now. Imagine a scenario whereby you want to get the list of users, immediately the user gets to that page. Do you understand? Presently, the user needs to first click on this button before this function is called upon. Right? Is that we getting me? Presently, the user needs to get to this page, click on this button, then you fetch the data from the endpoint, from this endpoint. Then you can now set it as a state. Let's maybe users, set users. Oops, stats. So I can come here and say set users to users.data. So I can do something like this. When I click on this button, it will do all of this. Then let's display it on the screen. Let's just display the. Oh, okay. Users.up. User just return. I just display the username alone. Okay, this will just display just the username alone. But like I said, you need to first click on this button. Map. Oh, I wrote map. Sorry. Oh, there's nothing in that button. Click me. Okay. Okay. So we have this now, right? The list of the name. But what I want to do now is, I want this name, this list of name, to be displayed immediately I get to the page, not until I click on this button. So one thing you can do is you can make use of useeffect. Let's see how to do it. Inside this React, we fetch two states. There is still another thing inside, it's called useeffect. Useeffect is a function. You call on the function. Inside this function, you put a callback there. A callback function. Any code you put here, okay, let me put it. This useeffect expects two arguments, right? The first argument is a function. The second argument is an array. I come again. Inside useeffect, you put two arguments. The first one is a function, a callback function like this. While the second argument is expected to be an array. Whenever this array is empty, what you are telling React is that immediately this component loads, immediately this present component, immediately it loads, then run the codes within this place. I come again. What I'm telling React is that whenever this component mounts on the page, once it loads, then run these codes for us. Any question? So once we get to the page now, it will run this code. And the reason it's doing that is because this array is empty. Don't worry, we'll look at instances where the array is not empty. But for now, know that once this array is empty, what you are telling React is that immediately this page loads, run this code for us. So let's go to the browser to see it. Is there any questions so far? Now, oh, you are seeing hello twice. Well, remember I said immediately this component loads, it should run this code. It will run this code. Now, what you expect, normally all things being equal, it ought to display just once, not twice. But there's something here called React.state mode. If you remove this, it will work fine. It only displays once, right? It only displays once. But please, when you host your React app, it will work perfectly, meaning that this will only display once. But please don't remove this. I'm only showing you the reason it's displaying twice is because of this React.state. But please don't remove it. Don't remove it. But then understand how or what is happening here. Because this is empty, what it means is that when this component loads, once it loads on the screen, on the page, on the browser, run this code and it will run whatever code you have here. So we can now take advantage of that and say, whenever this component loads, I want you to fetch this data from an endpoint, like from this URL, fetch this data from me. So what I'll do is I'll copy this from this place, this line. In fact, all of this like this. I'll cut them out. I will remove this. I'll remove this button. So we'll come here and put that here. Remember I also said that you can't put await. You can't use await except you are in async function, right? Hello everybody. The way we are responding, it seems we are not with me at all. This class is one of our most boring classes. Like, you are not responding. And I feel I'm not doing something right.
Sorry, like I said earlier, I'm actually hearing you, but I'm trying to follow up.
Okay.
Probably I need to catch up with the former classes before I'll be able to.
Okay, what
Thank
about?
you so much.
All right, thank you so much, sir. But what about others?
I was actually having some background noise, so I don't want to disturb the class. That's why I've not been talking.
Okay. Please, the rest of us, are we following? Let me know if you get it. If you have any question, ask me so that we can. Because I don't want, the way I'm feeling is as though I'm teaching myself, right? That's the way I'm feeling. It feels like I'm teaching myself. Okay. Do you have any question? Do you understand it? Okay. Now, I come again. Once you have use effect and you have an empty array here, what you are telling React is that this code must run immediately this component loads on the browser. What we want to do is, once this component loads, fetch data from an endpoint. So we make use of your async await axios.get. You are getting data from this URL. Oops. Let's copy this console. You are getting data from this URL. Like this. Getting data from this URL. Now, but remember I said you can't use await except you are inside an async function. You cannot use await. So you can't use this await because this is not an async function. So what can we do? What you can do is this. You can create it's a bad practice to put async here. Even though you see this error has come, right? This error has come. But please don't make the callback function inside your useEffect, don't make it an asynchronous function. I come again. The callback function inside your useEffect, don't make it an asynchronous function. There are other ways to go about it. So what you're going to do is, let's look at it this other ways. For now, just copy this URL because I will still need it, and delete every other thing here. So I'll create a function here, const, maybe my data, something, equals to. So I can make this an async function now. Then it's just, sorry, I'll wait. Exist dot get. So I just say store it as a variable. So let us know what's going on here. I will do something. I will indent this so that it becomes clear how this works. Inside your use effect, this is my use effect. I have a callback. My callback starts here and it ends here. Then I have an empty array. That means whatever codes I have inside this callback, all of these codes, will run immediately the component loads on the page. But what do I have here? We just have a function. From your knowledge of JavaScript, you know, if you don't call on the function, nothing happens. Like, it's not going to run the codes within that function. I need to first call on this function. This is just a function, but see, when we get to the page now, you're not going to see anything because we are yet to call on this function. Yes, this function is within this callback. But then, because you are yet to trigger this function, nothing happens. I'll go to the browser and see what I'm saying. Nothing. You can't see anything on the page. You can't see anything. That's because, okay, this earlier is from the previous one. Let me refresh this. So we can't see anything on the page. Nothing is happening because we've not called on this function. So I can now come here and say my data, then trigger the function. So what that is going to do is that immediately this page loads on the browser because of these use effects and this empty array, it will run the codes within this callback. So it's going to run this, but this is just a function. But here, I triggered the function here. So that means it goes back and run all of this, any question. So let's go to the browser, then you see your users. You see this, immediately the browser loads. But instead of displaying it in the console, let's put it on the screen. I'll set it as the value of this. So you can now say set users. So users like this. So on our page now, yes, this will still work fine. So refresh. Oh, users.map is not a function. What am I doing? Oh, sorry. Data user.data. So we have this here like this. Any questions so far? So we've looked at how React handles how you can run some codes, immediately the browser loads, immediately a component loads, Next is we want to do something again. What I want to do is back to what we did in our last class again. Get users. When I click on this button, I want to fetch a particular user, just one user for me. Just fetch one user. So now let's have an input. So we are creating an empty uh, a state here called user ID, and this user ID is it starts as an empty string. This is a function to that for that state. So as user types here now, I can use an input. Then I can say user assets set user ID. So put your event here like this. Event.target.id. So as user types here, the user ID becomes whatever the user types here. So when the user clicks on this button, I want to fetch the information of that particular user. So if I want to fetch the first user, I will type 1 here and it's going to fetch it from me. If I want to fetch the second user, I type 2 here, then it will fetch it from me like that. So let's create a function here. On click. So const fetch single user. So we call on this function fetch single user. So when the user clicks on this button, it will do this first. I'll wait before you can use I'll wait. This must be async. It's get. Go back to this place, copy this URL. So if I say /1, I want to, it's going to fetch the first user. This is what I mean. Let's the structure data out. So I'll click on this button now, then you see what this is like. So when I click on this, it's going to fetch the first user. If this is /2, this will be that it will fetch the information of the second user. /2 is fetch the information of the third user, on and on like that. But instead of doing this manually, we can attach this to it. So remember, the name of the state is user ID. Is it user ID? So and you know the state is set as user types here. So what you can do is you can use our backtick. But this is not part of React. This is from vanilla JavaScript. This is from JavaScript. So to fetch this, then to concatenate it with the user ID. So if the user ID is 1, it will fetch, it's going to be /1 like that. If the user ID is 2, it will be /2. If the user ID is 3, it will be /3. Right? Any questions so far? Any question? So the syntax here is literal operator. You can read on it. Literal or template literal operator. You can read on this in JavaScript or template literal. Yeah. You can also check it out in my JavaScript textbook. Now let's go to the browser and see what we have there. There's nothing here now. If I type 1, the reason it fetches all of this because there's nothing there. If I type 1, it will only fetch the first user. Oh, what's going on? What am I doing wrongly? It's fetching all. /user ID.
I think it's because roughly is not well.
Oh, event.target.value. Sorry. You said what?
Oh, I thought you were still mapping through the users initially.
Oh,
I
yes.
couldn't see the code. Yes.
Yes, we are mapping it. We are still mapping it. This is for all the users. But why
Yes.
this is for a single user, just one.
User. Yes.
Just one. So event dot target dot value, not I think I wrote it initially. So come here, type a number here. You see here it's very the fourth user, the sixth user. Now this looks sense making, right? Like instead of coming to our code to edit this one after the other, this has solved that problem. But then this is one of those things you can use your use effect to also undo. In fact, you may not even need this button. You may not need this button. Let's see how we can do that without this button. Such that as user types here, as user enters a value here, we fetch from an endpoint. I will remove all of this also. Then I write my use effect again. Use effect. Now, this first one is this is when it loads on the screen. Remember I said when this is empty, what you are saying is when this component loads on the screen. But now, we want a situation where whenever this value changes, this user ID, when it changes, I want it to run the code in this callback. Oops. When the user ID is 1, attach 1 to this place. Where is it? To this place. When the user ID is 2, attach 2 to this place. When the user ID is 3, attach 3 to this place. So we can do that. I'll copy all of this now. Then we can still do it exactly like the one we did initially. We can still fetch this fetch. We can still call it the same name, but not and with that. Then do just like before. Let's get the reason we are creating this second function is because we want to run a sync function. But let's say we are not running an asynchronous function. We will just write our code directly inside this place, right? But you are not permitted to put async on this callback. No, you can't. Please don't. I think it will even throw back an error for you to try to. So let data equals to await exhaust.get. I'll copy this. Let's copy to this point. For now, I'll just put that one /1 like this. Then console log data. No, but we are not yet done. Just like we saw the other time, if you go to the browser, nothing will happen here. And that's because you are here to call on this function. So we can call on this function out here. Remember I told you that your use effect has 2 arguments. The first argument is a callback. The second one is what? What's the second argument? Is that?
Dependency.
Is an array.
Dependency array.
Okay. Thank you so much. Dependency array. Now, what's the meaning of this dependency array? Let's discuss that. Remember I said once it's empty, what you are telling React is that when they see this browser, this page loads, then do this. But you can put some dependencies here. Whatever dependency you put here, what you are telling React is that should that value change, that if for any reason, if the value of that dependency should change, it must run all the codes in this place again. So I can pass my user ID here. So whenever user ID changes, it will run all of these codes again. All the codes in this callback will run again. I come again. Whenever this user ID changes, you can use this for states, you can use this for props. What I'm just saying is that once user ID change, this user ID, once it changes, run all of these codes for me. So what do we want to do? Instead of saying /1 now, we can now say slash, let's use a template later. Okay. Initially, I can set my user ID to be 1, starting from the beginning. Okay, and to keep the states. Initially, it can start as 1. Now, when you type any value here inside this input, once you type any value here, the value becomes the new value of user ID. That means user ID has changed and it's going to run these codes. Or the code here. That means it will fetch this data again and it's going to use the new value of the user ID. Let's say you typed 5, this becomes /5, right? Let's say I change it again to 10. I type 10 here. Instantly, it's going to run all of these codes again. Then, while fetching this, it will use the new value, which is /10. And what that means is that as I type there, as I type inside this input, it will always run these codes, and it's going to fetch using the new value. It's fetch using the new value. Any question? Any question? I think it's also important I add this. The codes inside this place will not just run when user ID changes, but it will also run immediately the browser loads. Meaning that the codes inside this place will run twice. It will run when this component loads, and also when this user ID, the value of this user ID changes, when it changes. Unlike this will only run, the codes here will only run when the component loads on the browser. It will only run when it loads on the browser. But this one will run when it loads on the browser. Yes. Also, we have 15 minutes left. This here will run when the component loads on the browser, and also when this user ID changes. So let's look at that. Let's go to the browser now. Refresh. Now you can see this here now. This because the first time, remember I said it will run the first time. Also, if I put any value here, once it changes, it's using the new value. I'll change it again to, let's say, 6. Now, why do we have this 10 here? That's because once I clear it, the value has changed, right? The value has changed. Instantly, it will run this again. It will run this, but this time around, it will be /empty string. The /empty string will fetch all the users. It will fetch all users. Do we understand? So once I type 7, it will use that one again to fetch it. Type 8, it will use that to fetch it. Any question? Any question? So there is one more thing you can do with your use effects. Now we've seen how to make use of use effect to load some content on the page, immediately the component loads. Also, we've seen how to make use of use effect to load some content when the value of a state or a prop changes. Now, in our next class, we're going to see how to use effects as a cleanup function. How to make use of use effect. In fact, it should solve this problem for us. The problem we are currently facing is that when I clear this, you say it has it's run this code again. It's on all of this. You don't want that to happen. You are still typing. I'm still typing. I'm not yet done typing, right? I'm only trying to clear what was there initially so that I can type something new. So you can use to solve this problem. Maybe you want to remove this 5 and type in 6. So instead of fetching this, you want it to be, okay, maybe when I stop typing, that's when I want you to fetch. I'm still typing presently, right? So we're going to see how to make use of use effect as a cleanup function in our next class. Any question before I give us assignments? Any question? Okay. So let me give us an assignment to work on. My last assignment, nobody submitted, right? Yeah, I think nobody submitted my last assignment. Nobody.
I did.
Okay, Mr. Sheriff, I'm coming. I'm coming. I want to confirm that. I think you asked question as regards it.
Yes, I think that was early in the week, but I submitted this Thursday, the overnight.
Oh, sorry, I'm trying to check the chat now. Okay. All right, no problem. Okay. All right.
If you check the group chat,
Okay, on the group. Oh, on the group. Okay, okay. I think I can see it on the group. Yes, you did. I was trying to check the chat. I mean, DM. Okay, okay. All right. I'll check it out. Sorry, I didn't take note of it. Sorry. Okay. Please, the assignment I'm about to give us now, I want us to do it. I want us to do it. What I want you to do for me is this. Uh, yeah, okay. Posts. Okay. So, it would just like before, it's just going to be a continuation of what we are currently doing, right? Oh, I think we've been using, okay, this is post. We've been using users all this while. This time around, we want to make use of posts. Each post has a user ID and the ID of the post, a title, and a body. I'm actually interested more in this part. Ignore this user ID for now. I'm interested in this three, the ID, the title, and the body. So what I want you to do for me is that when there will be an input here just like this, then there will be a button. So I can put one here, then click on that button. When I click on that button, it's going to fetch the first post from me. Then it will give it the title will be bold, maybe you give it a strong tag. The title will be bold, then the body will be underneath it. You understand? And I type 2 here, and I click on that button. The title will be bold, the body will be underneath it. So whatever post I want to fetch, I'll put it here. Then click on this button, then the title will be bold and uh, the body will be underneath it. Any question? Any question? So please let's work on it. We still have a lot of things to cover.
Sorry, when are we to submit the assignment?
Before the next class, we have our classes once a week, every Friday.
Alright, so can we use this same data, the endpoint you are using for the class?
Yes, that's Just go to this website, JSON placeholder. JSON placeholder. So you can, please, I'm begging
Can
us.
you repeat the assignment again?
Okay. There will be an input here. There will be a button. The user will type the ID of the data he or she wants to fetch. So if I type 8, meaning I want to fetch the 8, this one with an ID of 8, because I want to fetch this. So once I click on that button, it will fetch this data for me. Then after fetching it, the title will be displayed, but that will be bold. Then the body will be underneath it. Do we get it? The title will be bold, then the body will just be underneath it. So as time goes on, all of these things we've learned, we will now bring them together. It seems we are learning them individually, like separately now. So we now bring them together later, but we still have a lot of things to learn. Please be doing this assignment, because if you're not doing these little assignments, when we start giving you big ones, you find it a bit difficult to do, right? And that's because you've not been doing these small ones. This is, you may think, oh, I know it, but really, if you've been solving the assignments, you realize that sometimes the assignment does not look as they seem. When you start solving, that's when you actually learn. Please, I want us to work on these assignments, get them done. Uh, get them done. I hope at the end of every, I want it to be worth my time. But after all of this, I want it to be worth it. That okay, doing this for us, I want to be able to raise front-end developers or React developers after this turn. It's not going to make sense that after this whole training and all, we are not able to raise any developer. Please work on this assignment. But then, if you are not working on my assignments, if I think so far only this man, Mr. Sharif, yes, he has been the one doing the previous one. If I, aside that of today, the previous ones, he has been the one doing that. I think I mentioned this in one, maybe our last two classes. Only one person did the assignment, so he has been the one doing it over time. As time goes on, if the assignment turnout is poor, I may pause the training for a while, get all of us or a good number of us to work on the assignment before we proceed, on previous assignments before we proceed, so as to enforce that. Please, I don't want it to get to the point where I'll be forcing us to do things before we move forward. Please do the assignments. Thank you so much. Thanks for coming. Have a lovely night rest. Good night, everybody.